and we should all just work on ourselves and keep our channel open. And most of us, we always know there's a knowing. We know when someone's bullshitting us, when we know when someone's telling the truth, we know when someone like us, and when we know when someone don't like us. So why is it that we have put such an important weapon, such an important compass in our back pocket and we never use it? Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Soulful Intuitive. I wanted to thank you for liking, sharing, and subscribing. And before further ado, let's get into today's episode. So last time we talked about Dopesick, and I really enjoyed it. It was one of my favorite topics to talk about. And today we're going to continue talking about the concept that we're covering, which was the corruption and just not listening to our intuitive, all-knowing voice that we all have on the inside, also known as gut feeling. And so today I was getting some services done to my back at a chiropractor, and he was just talking about what's happening in the world, and we got into it, and we were just talking, and then he asked me, where do you get your news? And like my partner and I have not had cable services for the past, I think, 14 years because we just couldn't handle the ads and the repetitive stuff on cable news and the cable programming and the cable shows. But we were using online streaming and just watching what we wanted to watch. And so in the past 12, 13 years, we found other pundits and other newscasters on YouTube who have proven to be trustworthy. So if I'm going to share those with you, as I shared with my chiropractor, because more and more people are realizing that just watching cable news and mainstream media is not only not providing them with what's important, but mainly just lying to them. And instead of appealing to their love and humanity, just appeals to the wrong side of us, which is fear and anger and hatred. And we don't want that because, of course, they want you to stick to the TV, and they want you to be angry, and they want you to constantly feel like the world's coming to an end. So you want to know what's happening every minute and every second or every day, and yet they are laughing all the way to the bank. So the Dopesick was just one example of what happens with the billionaires who have one thing on the mind, which is making the money, and the symptoms of corporate capture. So they basically capture the very entities in the government that are supposed to regulate them, and tell them when they're wrong, and tell them to go back to their offices and rethink their strategies and their products and the safety of it. So us, the consumers, wouldn't have to pay the price with our life and with our livelihood. But when those corporations made enough money, billions, they can pretty much buy off anyone. And that has happened all around the world. This is not just a North American issue. So because us humans, we're vulnerable, and we're vulnerable to flattery. We are vulnerable to our habits. We are vulnerable to the echo chamber. We're vulnerable to being bought with either titles or degrees or money or status or flattery. You know, there's so many ways to just trick people into liking you and trusting you, and before you know it, you are on the side of the bad guy as opposed to be on the side of the good guy. That's why you were there. So yeah, we're all born innocent and wonderful, but unfortunately, when you live in this world long enough, and when you surround yourself with certain energies, and when you don't listen to your gut feeling, and when you lose the sense of who you are, of course you're going to be vulnerable to all those vultures and all those tricksters. So Dopesick was just one example. But let's just go back to the last couple of years. We all know what happened during the Iraq war, where the whole world was told that the troops are going in there because they had weapons of mass destruction. And then it became a joke by the ones who made up the lie. And everybody knew it was wrong. Everybody knew it was a lie. Yet it was repeated over and over and over and over again from every pundit, from every news channel, from every reporter. And at some point, with some lies and with some fake stories, people gave their consent, and we all know what happened. And I remember I was in Korea when I was watching the footage of their first strikes, and it brought me to tears because having come from a place where we have experienced war and being bombarded and being attacked by missiles, which I don't wish upon anyone, because for most people, this is just something they see in the movies. It's not a reality. But if it is your reality, unfortunately, if you're watching this show and if you've lived through it, you know that it's terrifying. And I knew deep down that was wrong. I knew deep down that it was wrong for me to take off my shoes and my belt and my give up like everything in my hand when I'm getting on the plane, because they all told us that this is temporary. Of course, it wasn't temporary. And then I was harassed at every airport ever since because, the profiling, and I'm going to put it in quotation because they usually profile people of color. And we accepted because what are we going to do? Because we don't want to confront. We don't want trouble. We just want to be good little boys and good little girls going along and not causing trouble. Again, let's think about the opioid. From opioid, we're going to move into Johnson & Johnson. In their baby powder, they were putting asbestos, which is toxic, and baby powders are used for babies. And so if you think about any corporation, because corporations have the bottom line, which is more and more and more profit. So if they don't have any mercy for babies, because as humans, if we think about a stage in our life where we are most vulnerable and it's impossible not to love and like babies, they're like puppies. If you don't have mercy on babies, who are you going to have mercy for? And if we're going to fall for over and over again, because people say, oh, these are just, one-off, it's not one-off. It happens all around us. We know it. There's another documentary that you guys can watch about Bernie Madoff, and he has basically put together the biggest Ponzi scheme in Wall Street, where he was selling a lie basically and telling people that, oh, you're going to give me your money and I'm just going to give you this much interest. But his whole scheme relied upon getting more and more and more money. So basically he was getting money from you and then he was giving that money to someone else, and that's how Ponzi schemes work. But he made so much money, and that money brought him so much influence and power that he had bought everyone on the committee of the regulators in SEC to not catch him. And there were reporters, there were honest reporters and other financiers who smelled the fraud. And even though they had so much evidence that what he was doing was the biggest fraud, they still couldn't bring him down. And the only reason why he was arrested is because of the 2008 financial crash, and he had to turn himself in. So, and that's Wall Street. So we have Wall Street, we have pharmaceutical, we have the war machines, we have the political systems. So what they all have in common is people with money, because your first million, you're gonna buy your house and car and this and that. Your first billion, you already have all the cars, you already have all the houses, you already have been all around the world, you already bought everything that is there to buy. So that billion is going to give you power. And you're going to use that power to either intimidate people or to buy their silence, or to buy them off so they can come up with their titles, whatever they are, to just reinforce what you're saying, to pass the laws that benefit you, to tell the public what they need to hear in order to buy your product. It's so simple, and yet people make it so complex, and it's difficult to understand if you don't want to understand it. But I work with a girl where I try to explain something to her about her autistic son, and she just, at that point of time, she just didn't want to face that, which with autism, the earlier you find out, the more you can do for the child. And yet, because it was brand new, maybe it was too much of a reality, and so she covered her ears, and that was it until, when she was ready to go ahead and face the reality and do what one has to do in these situations. So the same thing applies to all of us. Sometimes reality is a little too much. Sometimes it's a little too dark. Sometimes it's complicated, and sometimes it's not. So if you look around and we see what we've seen in the past 20 years, in the past 10 years, for those ones who are very young, the past 5 years, these are not exceptions. These are the rules, and we need to inform ourselves. The emphasis should be on self-development, but how can we self-develop but not develop our society? Because we're all collectively one, and all of us together form a society. So if we all want to live in La La Land, and if we all want to believe that what we're being told all the time is the truth, then we are going to be treated as such. Because when we give up our consent, and when we turn off our intelligence because we were tricked, or we were told that we're not smart enough, or we're told that this is too complicated for our blood, or this is too complex of an issue, and for that you need to go to university for 12 years to sit through this lecture, then they are going to treat you as such, which is going to be how you treat idiots. And I use that term, even though I don't like that term, but when you act like an idiot, you're going to be treated like an idiot. So then you don't really have a choice after that, because you have already told them that, you know what, you fooled me once, you fooled me twice. So really just shame on me. That's where it comes down to. So the reason why I'm all about intuition, I'm all about gut feeling, because I don't believe in idiots. I believe that we're all aware, we're all intelligent, we're all divine beings, and there are no idiots when it comes to divinity. If we're channeling our divinity, if we believe in ourselves, and if we don't allow others to tell us that we are nothing but an accident, that if we don't have this color or this socioeconomic status, then we're just part of the fringe. Well, if we accept it, then sure, they're going to treat you like dirt. They're going to treat you like you don't matter. And when you don't matter, they can kill you with the wrong drug. They can kill you with the war. They can kill you with poverty, with ups and downs of the market that they so-called accidental and but not manipulated at all. And it's so interesting to me that the same people are so quick to go buy billionaires' books on how they made their billions, and yet we hear all the time that these billionaires, they plan certain stories to inflate a stock after they bought it for cheap, and then they sell it. But then they tend to always leave out those little nuggets of truth when they're writing a book on how to get rich fast, because they all want to tell you that they're so hardworking, which I'm not saying they're not, and they're so intelligent, and they went to the right schools, and they talk to the right people, and that's why they are where they are. But they just almost always leave the most important part, which is the things they do which, by the way, in most cases, they even make it legal, and they call it legal loops. There are always these loopholes where they put in these laws on purpose. So, but you only know where they are when you wrote the book, or you hire the right people who know the loopholes, and then they use it, and then they might even brag about it later on that, you know what, I didn't pay for my taxes because of these loopholes. But most of us, almost all of us, we pay our taxes. We don't even ask questions because we don't know where the loopholes are, because they were not created for us. They were created for our gods, because a lot of them are treated like gods. And like, I'm sorry, we all have done that. It's one of our human flaws where we make demigods out of people, whether they're celebrities or artists or musicians or politicians, but we're all the same. No one's above anyone, and we shouldn't really regard anyone as gods. Like, we're all divine entities, and we should all just work on ourselves and keep our channel open. And most of us, we always know. There's a knowing. We know when someone's bullshitting us, when we know when someone's telling the truth, we know when someone like us, and when we know when someone don't like us. So why is it that we have put such an important weapon, such an important compass in our back pocket, and we never use it? And that's why we are where we are. And to also tell you which channels I watch, which I also listen to podcasters, and I watch YouTube channels from all ends of spectrum, because I need to know exactly what everyone is saying. But the ones that I find very useful are Gray Zone, Kim Iverson, The Hills, Glenn Greenwald. I listen to Redacted, Valley Tainment, Jimmy Dore, Russell Brand, and The Hills. And you also watch them and you listen to them, but also know that these people are also human, which means that at any point they can be bought off, they can be tricked, they can be manipulated, they can be derailed from the path that they all started off these podcasts or these platforms on. For example, my partner and I used to watch The Young Turks many years ago, and the start of the show was amazing. But then we both noticed that, somebody invested in them. All of a sudden, the tone of the show changed and their direction changed, and then it just became another propaganda piece and another platform where you're watching and you know that there is an agenda. And sure, the agenda can be or should be informing people, and sure, maybe the pundits have their own biases, but it was more than that. So we just unsubscribed, and then we moved on. And that's what everybody should do, because all of these channels that I have listed for you at any point of time can go off rail. And for example, the Breaking Point, I really like them. I don't necessarily agree with Crystal 90% of the time, and I am watching their show, but I keep my eyes open, and I also read the comments, because it's important to read the comments, because sometimes you're watching something and they make it seem like everybody liked it, and then when you read the comments, everyone's attacking them. For example, they brought RFK Jr., Robert Kennedy, and that interview was a disaster. And I went to write a comment, and then I started reading the comments, and almost everybody attacked her, because she just was not even giving him the respect that you have to give your host. And this guy's talking about his book. She clearly hasn't even bought or read the book. And yet, because she still believes in the fact that she is right about what she thinks is right, that she made a fool of herself. And then because all the audience and other pundits started attacking her, they brought her back, but it was a non-apology apology. And I told my partner, I don't know how long we're going to be watching this channel, because this channel is also becoming a bit iffy. And so it's important to have a variety of places where you get your news, because it's impossible for us to get all of these facts online because we all have jobs and family and friends and obligations. So these people dedicate so much time to dig deep, and when you start hearing something from like 10 of them, then chances are maybe it's worth thinking about. Because like my thing is that whenever I hear on or off of the mainstream media, I run the other way. So if they say tomorrow is going to rain, I know tomorrow is going to be sunny, and that's been proven to me. So, but with these characters, even though they're not all aligned, but for now they all seem to be going in the right direction of being real journalists, asking the hard questions, and having the humbleness and humility to come back and say, we made a mistake, we got this wrong, which that's what nice, proper, and ethical journalists have to do, and something that we don't see on mainstream media. And so what happens is when your gut tells you that they're lying to you, and then you keep watching them, then at some point you already turned off that gut feeling, and you already basically gave away your power, and then gave away your intelligence, gave away your critical thinking, and decided that, oh, because I didn't go to Harvard, or because I didn't go to Oxford, or because I didn't come from a dynasty, or I don't have billions, or I don't have good looks to be on camera, therefore my feelings and my knowings and my knowledge and my awareness is not good enough and is not worthy. And that's how people get abused in life. And if you go into a relationship with someone and you give up your power, they're going to abuse you if they're not aware, and if they're not in touch with that light inside of them. So why do you think these entities would be any different? Like, as above, so below. Like, everything in a micro level is also reflected on a macro level, and vice versa. So try to go out there, try to find the truth, and try to listen. And I know most of us don't have time because life is so busy, and we're trying so hard just to keep our head above the water. But it's so important to dedicate some time every day or every couple of days to dig some truth, and to learn some things, and to not believe that everything that we're hearing is correct, and everything that, like, every time they're trying to tell you that, oh, like, don't worry, go shopping, everything's fine, or like, don't look at here, look at here. So we should get good at that. So over time, not only we get good at it, but we also teach our kids not to fall for that. Because if us as a generation are bulletproof, they're going to be doing that to our kids or to our kids' kids. So this has to be taught in schools. This has to be taught, that critical thinking and not being naive, and always putting your thinking hat on, and also your gut feeling being right there, accessible, and is one of the tools that we use in order to navigate life. These things need to be taught, and after we all collectively become very intuitive and aware of these little signs and symbols, and these just feelings that we get when we're being lied to, or when we're trying to find out what the truth is, and they shame us or they call us names. If we get really good at that, then we can just fix most of our society's ills, and we also can agree to disagree. And that's why I love having these variety of shows where they have different political affiliations and different beliefs. But overall, it's so important to know that we live in a world where diversity is the key. You're never going to get 8 billion people who believe in the same thing, who worship the same thing, who have the same ideology. But what's important is to find commonality, and also to learn to debate, and to learn to be humble, and to learn to respect each other, but also be always curious to know what they're saying, and always be ready to stop listening to people who have lost their credibility, because we don't owe them anything. The ones who get derailed maybe should be told that Maybe it's time to look in the mirror, or maybe it's time to go through your moral standards, or check your ethics. And maybe that's all they need to hear. And sometimes they're just going to go off the rail, and that's their choice. But it doesn't mean that we need to follow them into the darkness. Well, thank you very much for watching, and I will talk to you in the next episode. Thank you.